No curveballs, nothing like that. Just
cool.
Straight up like
just conversation. That's cool. I mean, that's how my podcast is. You know.
Yeah, listen to it. It was really good.
Ours was. Yeah. I got some positive feedback. We were vibing good. So.
I wonder if Missy listened.
I don't know. I'll have to ask
I like her a lot.
Yeah, she's a cool girl.
Yeah. Let's test voice volume really quick. Test. That's good.
Test. Mic test.
Yeah, that's perfect. How do I say your last name?
Varce.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Ready?
I'm ready, man.
Okay. Hey guys, welcome back to the Aspire Higher podcast. I'm here with a special guest today, Quinton Varce. How are you?
I'm doing awesome, my man. I'm ready to rock and roll.
Good. Thanks for coming all the way up from the Springs to Denver to come chat with me about fitness, nutrition, life.
For sure.
Love, maybe if we get to it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about love with me, man, but we can try. We can try.
That's really funny. It came up when you interviewed me on the 127 Fitness podcast. So before we dive into today's conversation, tell me a little bit about your background. On the surface level, I know you're a teacher, certified personal trainer, and a podcast host. For sure. So just a little bit about myself, Dave. I grew up, born and raised in Iowa. So I'm a good old Midwestern boy. I also went to college in South Dakota, so hung out there for quite a few years. But I grew up in a very, I'd say, traditional Midwestern home. Mom and dad had a younger brother, have a couple older half siblings. But the takeaway from my upbringing was sports. I mean, sports was God. It was everything for me. I played all kinds of sports from, I was on swim team all the way up, to varsity football. Played a year of college football, Division III school in Iowa. And so as I look back on my upbringing, my background, my mom and dad are still together to this day, and I'm very appreciative of kind of the discipline that they instilled in myself and my younger brother. We were spanked. My dad, very specifically, I remember one time I said something to him, I back talked, and he just pointed at me, looked me in the eyes, and said, "You don't ever back talk to me." So there was some great structure in the home life. Again, that discipline when we did things wrong, and I really appreciate that, and I'm thankful for that. But the overall takeaway from my childhood and my upbringing was sports. And I know when you were on my podcast, you talked about kind of having that free range life and kind of just riding bikes with your buddies in the neighborhood and things like that. My life in that sense was very similar to yours, Dave. I grew up free range. We were in city limits, but we had like 2 or 3 acres. We had a little creek that ran in front of our house. We had to cross this little wooden bridge. So my brother and I grew up playing cowboys and Indians, cops and robbers, exploring, very free range. We had some awesome neighbors. So, my parents, weren't like, helicopter parents by any means, not even close. We kind of went out, we did our thing. We knew when we were supposed to come back home to eat and things of that nature. So between sports and kind of that free range, lifestyle and growing up outdoors has hugely impacted me to where I'm at today. Did you always want to be a physical education teacher?
No. Fitness kind of came on the scene for me, Dave. Summer going into my 4th grade year, there was a gentleman, he passed away earlier this year, but his name was Ralph Kroger. He's a former Mr. California bodybuilder, former Mr. Natural Universe. I grew up in a town of 5,000 people in northwest Iowa, Cherokee, Iowa, and this man opened up a small little gym there. And when I say gym, because nowadays we got the CrossFit boxes, we've got 24-hour fitness. I'm talking about kind of like an old school bodybuilding gym, free weights and things of that nature. But, excuse me, he opened up that gym in 1990. We actually moved to Cherokee in 1990, summer going into my 4th grade year. My mom took myself and my younger brother over there. Long story short, Ralph, the way that I look at it now is Ralph gave me the gift of fitness at a very young age. And fitness for me back then was kind of like bodybuilding, free weights, lifting weights. And that's kind of where I really got exposed to that, and then athletics. So my whole thing, getting back to your question, in regards to college, like I went to college and I wanted to be a personal trainer and I wanted to open up my own gym. That was kind of it. Then I grew up going to church, so kind of the Christian faith has been a big cornerstone in my life and stuff. Then I've had different periods in my life where I walked away, but so I really got plugged back into a solid non-denominational fellowship in my early 20s. post-college. I spent a lot of time in ministry, and that's where God really began, Dave, to break my heart for youth. There's a lot of Native Americans in South Dakota where I was living at the time, going to college, spent a lot of time on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, and so that's where my heart really began to break and stir for youth. So I've got fitness and, you know, 4th grade through sport. The kind of the youth, the next generation thing came on the scenes, you know, my mid-20s. I did actually take, as I look back on my life and kind of reflect kind of where did this teaching thing come in, my freshman year in college, I did take Introduction to Education. So there was kind of an interest in that in my early years of college, but it really came on as I got older. And then I enlisted in the Navy. I got discharged during boot camp for medical stuff, and that's kind of where I was just like, you know what, I want to use my degree. I want to be more than a personal trainer. That was kind of my mindset, and I said I want to use fitness and pour into the next generation, give back to the next generation. And you combine fitness and youth, you kind of get a physical education teacher. So that's kind of where that came to be.
So you decided to go from 1 year in a school in Iowa to South Dakota and then to Colorado. Walk me through that transition.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you asking that. So I went to Central College in Pella, Iowa, Division III school, played a year of football, quit football. I transferred then up to the University of Sioux Falls. I had a high school buddy that was on the football team there. I didn't play football. They were NAIA at the time. They were winning national championships. I'm a realist. I knew I wasn't good enough to be on the team, so I was like, you know, I'm not going to go out. That was kind of that. So then I graduated from the University of Sioux Falls in 2010. Like I just mentioned, I had a lot of ministry opportunities in my mid to late 20s. Then, you know, enlisted in the Navy. I think I was like 28, 29. I'm 32 right now. That didn't go. It was supposed to be a 4-year contract, all this stuff. It didn't go as planned. I got out of the Navy. My older half sister, her dad, and my older half brother's dad, he was declining health-wise. So she said, hey, would you move down to Des Moines, Iowa? You can live with me and my family. Would you be my dad's afternoon caretaker, take him to the Y so he can get his walks in and things like that. He got diagnosed shortly after that with dementia, with Alzheimer's. He declined really rapidly, and that spring, this was like I think October, November, we had to put him in a care facility. So at that point, my older half brother and his family lives in the Springs, and they're into real estate. My brother builds houses, and my sister is a real estate agent. My sister-in-law, she sells them, and they had a couple apartment complexes. So my brother's like, hey, pray about coming out here. Prayed about it. Really felt like that's what God wanted for me at that time. And I'm a kind of a wanderlust, free-spirited individual, very free range, kind of going back to that terminology. And I'm always up for something new, a new adventure. And I moved out here, and that's kind of how I ended up in the Springs. So. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's awesome, absolutely. What would you say that your personal mission statement would be?
So if you which you obviously are familiar with my podcast because you've been a guest, but somebody that's listening to your podcast isn't familiar with my podcast, the 127 Fit podcast. Kind of the mantra for that is to be someone to follow. And Dave, kind of like what that is like, I don't want people following me. And it has nothing to do with social media. You can be like, oh, like, okay. But it has nothing to do with Instagram or, social media. But the whole thing is that I want to live a life so that if somebody looks at my life and says, okay, Quinton is preaching, he's teaching, he's sharing, and his actions are in alignment with those words that are coming out of his mouth. So I want somebody, especially youth, because I am a teacher, because I'm passionate about youth and all that type of stuff. I want, kids specifically, but anybody to be able to look at my life and say, okay, Quinton is in alignment. Am I perfect? Absolutely not. Do I mess up? Absolutely, every single day. I've got a lot of things I'm working on. I've got a lot of issues, but I want the best that I can to have my life, in alignment. I want to be somebody to follow. I want somebody to be able to look at my life and be like, hey, you know what? I need somebody to kind of just like get some traction in my life. I need somebody to kind of follow for a short time. I'm going to follow this guy because he's moving in a positive, direction. He's moving in the right direction. So that is something that I write every morning, be someone to follow. It's something that's repeatedly on replay in my mind, is be someone to follow. If there's kind of like a situation I'm in where it's like, well, I could do this or I could do this. This is right. This is wrong. This is kind of a gray area. I'm like, be someone to follow, Quinton. Be someone to follow. And so that's kind of the slogan. That's kind of like my mantra. And then, the whole thing outside of that is to take the gift of fitness that was given to me through Ralph Kroger when I was, in that fourth grade time frame. The gift of fitness was given to me, and it's radically impacted and changed my life. So my whole mission, my whole passion, my everything in my life is to take the gift of fitness and to pass it on to the next generation, so that those kids, so that next generation can realize the importance of physical fitness, physical culture, learn what I've learned through physical culture and physical fitness, and be able to become the best versions of themselves.
That's awesome, man. So you took your personal mission and you put it down on recording on the 127 Fit
Right.
podcast.
Yeah. And the whole thing, the whole impetus behind the podcast is, to give, people a platform to share their story, so that those who listen would be positively impacted. And the 127 stands for James 1:27, which is a Bible verse, and it talks about taking care of orphan kids and widows. It's about service. It's about helping others. So the whole podcast is, again, a platform for people to share their story. And, the whole thing behind it, though, is, again, taking fitness, the gift of fitness that I've been given, the gift of fitness that you've been given, because all of my podcast guests, for the most part, there's been one, there's going to be some in the future that maybe aren't really involved in fitness, but for the most part, all of my guests, all of our commonality starts with fitness. We're all uniquely different. We all have amazing stories, but it all starts with fitness. And again, fitness is a gift that's been given to us, and whether we're passing it on to the next generation or we're passing it on to other people, fitness is absolutely a gift. So the podcast, yes, it's kind of like, it's my personal mission to get people's stories out there. And then the end goal, kind of the end game with the podcast, I do all of my podcasts in person. I don't do them over Skype. I don't do them over phone or anything. Like, I came to your residence last time. We were sitting in the same spot, face to face. So, I'm building a fitness community. I'm building a like-minded community with all these people that I'm connecting with. And will all of these people, will we cross paths again? No, not all of us, but some of us will. And the end game and the end goal is to open up a school centered around movement. And the name of that school, I've already got the name. I've kind of got a manifesto. I believe I gave it to you. I give it to most of my guests, either just in person or through email or whatever. But it's called Free Range on the Front Range. So kind of going back to that free range experience I had, movement, exploring, there is a lack of free rangeness. There's a lack of physical culture in our country. Unfortunately, one of the first positions cut out of public education is the PE teacher. Recesses are being reduced, and we see a lot of the effects of that. But in our culture, through the kids and a lot of the issues that are going on right now in public education. But the end game is to open up a school somewhere on the Front Range, because it's free range on the Front Range. So somewhere in Colorado on the Front Range. And then not only do I want to open up one school, and it's not me. I want to be very clear. Like, that's why, like, all these beautiful connections I'm making through the podcast, Dave. It's gonna take an army, right? Anytime we do anything in life, like, yeah, we can get to a certain point by ourselves, but we need community. We need that connection. We need an army of like-minded people. So when I say I'm gonna open, that's not necessarily what I mean. We are gonna open a school, but I also want to start a public education revolution. And again, it's centered through movement. Is it gonna be more than movement? Are we gonna have academics? Are we gonna have math and science? Absolutely. But I firmly believe, because science backs it up, like, without movement, we cannot, as human beings, reach our greatest, fullest potential. And we need to have that movement. We need to have that free rangeness. We need to have opportunities to explore, and step into uncomfortable things, especially as kids, because we're learning, we're developing, we're so impressionable. So I want to start a public school. I am going to start a public school revolution, and it's going to be centered around a school with movement.
On the Front Range.
Yep, on the Front Range.
So yeah, your point is well received, because there's STEM schools out there.
Yep.
There's intelligence quotient. There's emotional quotient. There's actually something studied where it's the kinesiology quotient as well. So like, kids growing up can be assessed of whether or not they're that book smart, they're emotionally smart, or they're physically smart.
Right.
And it is a true gift for some people to be pure athletes from the get-go.
Absolutely, right.
And they shouldn't necessarily be given a harder time in school educationally, academically, because their gift is in the sports sciences.
Right,
you know,
yeah.
there are a lot of athletes who grow up struggling in high school,
Absolutely.
and then they're proficient in college because they're given assistance to get through tutors. You know,
Right.
those elite level athletes are given a lot of tools once they reach college, but they're not really given that many tools in high school. They're gonna like push through to graduate. And that for the free range on the Front Range might actually be a specific place where those kids can come excel academically. And then what do you want these kids who come through your school to go on and achieve after they're done?
That's a great question. So my whole thing in regards to human beings is I firmly believe that each of us has a destiny, okay? I also firmly believe that most of us human beings fall way short of stepping into and fulfilling that destiny, Dave, for a myriad of reasons. But I want, to the best of my ability and the people that I surround myself, so to the best of our ability, I want us to set kids up for success in the sense of pursue your destiny, pursue your purpose. And that is something like, you know, just talking about mindset. I went to public school, you know, I went to, you know, spent a lot of time in public education. I've been teaching, this is my 3rd year in public education, so I have a lot of experience with public education, you know, personal and teaching, but it's so wrong. Like, you know, I listen to so many podcasts, Dave. I interact with so many amazing people through my personal podcast, and it's like, dude, like, we've got to teach these kids about the mindset. We've got to teach these kids about proper nutrition. We've got to teach them about, you know, the importance of doing hard things. Like, all of these things that we've learned, I think probably, you know, as we've gotten older. I mean, there's things that we learn as kids, but a lot of that, as I look at my own personal life, was through like experience, through sports, through, you know, roaming around on the outdoors. It wasn't necessarily learning valuable things within the school setting. Like, there was so much wasted time in my public education. I tell people all the time, it's like, dude, even in college, I feel like my 4 years in college for the most part was a waste of time. Because a lot of this stuff I was already taught by Ralph Kroger, and just actually, you know, stepping into the weight room and you know, putting that application, you know, on my own life. So it's like, how can we set these kids up for success, and again, in the sense of pursuing their dreams, pursuing their goals, stepping into their destiny, you know, pursuing their destiny. What's my purpose? What's your purpose? What's your why? Whatever word you want to throw out there, what's your mission? Like, we need to instill in these kids that type of language. And I really believe it does. It starts with our language, you know, how we talk to each other as adults, how we talk to kids. Language is powerful, we both know that. And then also, kind of going back to be someone to follow, backing that language up by action. So if I'm going to tell a kid, like, hey, man, do you grow? And I say this, you know, at my previous school I said this a lot, but hey, you know, kids, do we grow as human beings within the comfort zone or outside of the comfort zone? And, you know, actually a lot of them know intellectually, well, you grow outside of the comfort zone. Like, they would tell me. But, you know, are they seeing that modeled in their home life? For the most part, no. Are they doing that themselves? No, because kids probably aren't going to do a lot of things outside of their comfort zone unless they're kind of, I don't want to say forced, but encouraged to. So it all starts with changing our language as adults, how we speak to each other, how we speak to the next generation, and then, like I talked about earlier, being aligned, our actions being aligned with our words, and just really, you know, cultivating that, hey, there is more in life. What is your mission? What is your purpose? What is your destiny? Why are you here? And really instilling that. And I firmly believe as adults, as kids, begin to be open to passion and desire and the fire that's burning within them, then true, real life begins. And that's what I want to put into the next generation. What are you passionate about? If that's what you're passionate about, you go pursue that with all of your heart, and whatever success is for you individually, whatever success is, I don't know, that can kind of get weird, but just pursue your passion with everything. So that's really what I want to instill in the next generation, and again, through the movement, through the exploration, through obviously the classroom work. I want the teachers to be, focused on, more than just, the geometry and, the reading, the writing. That's all going to be there. We're going to have the best teachers. We're going to have the best actual, like, sitting in a, well, we're not going to sit. We're going to have standing desks. But, we're going to have the best educators, teaching in the classrooms. But we're also going to be instilling in, that language of kind of the growth mindset and things like that.
So what do you say to somebody? First of all, I completely respect your point of view on that. What do you say to somebody who's going to challenge you with, well, these kids are young enough that they don't have it all figured out yet? Are they supposed to have it all figured out when they come to your school or when they come into contact with you?
That's awesome. I'd say, well, I'm 32 years old and I don't have it all figured out. You know what I mean? Like that. Honestly, that's what I would probably say if somebody approached me in that nature. I would say, well, I'm 32. I don't have it all figured out. So absolutely, we are not trying to get these kids to figure it all out. What we're trying to do is to educate these kids in a different way to understand what is your passion. Because you and I know passion is everything. Purpose is everything. Mission is everything. A human being without passion, without mission, without purpose, I mean, they're not living. They might be physically alive, but inward, they're dead. And I'm sure we've had seasons where we're trying to figure out our passion, or maybe there's been a shift, and it's just like you kind of go through that depression, and there's all kinds of different things. So it's like we have all inside of us as human beings, I firmly believe it, that God has put, specific desires, He's put specific passions, purpose, mission within us. So I don't have it all figured out, but I want to open up the next generation to a greater education than the math, the science, the reading, the writing, sitting in a desk, not moving, being bored out of your mind, wasting time. Mm-hmm. So I just really want to take advantage of that time that we would have before these kids and say, okay, passion, what is it?
Yeah. So a student who's struggling in their regular school, in their public education system close to home, maybe they're restless, maybe they're causing trouble in class, and maybe they're the perfect fit to come try out a movement-based philosophy in education. So are you going to take on all of these kids as a personal project and pour into them every day?
It's going to be a charter school. It's not going to be a private school because I don't want any kid to pay. It's going to be a charter school because I want everybody and anybody in any situation in regards to a child to be able to come. It's a personal thing for me, but then again going back to it's going to take an army. Like this is something that is way out there for me. You know what I mean, Dave? This is a vision. This is something that God's put in my heart, and I know for me personally, I firmly again believe that if it's God, it's gonna happen. You know what I mean? So this vision and this manifesto, a page and like 3/4 I've written out, like this is all inspired by God. Like this is all stuff that God's put in my heart. The passion, the fire, everything that flows out of me, is what God has put inside of me. So it's personal, yes, but again, it goes back to it's going to be an army, and it's all got to be in alignment again. Man, we've got to be a team, an army, however you want to word that, a group of people. We've got to be moving together, and we're going to take anybody. I don't care. Like it's not just for the kid that's getting kicked out of public school will come to free range on the front range. Like, I want this school not just to be, excellent in regards to the movement and the exploration, kind of all these, different ideas in regards to education. I also want the classroom work to be excellent. I want us to be academically one of the best schools in the state of Colorado, if not the nation. You know what I mean? So I don't want people to be like, well, this guy's just talking about, the movement and where's all the, the math and science. That's going to be there too. Because anything that I pursue in my life, I'm going to be all in, and I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. And if you bring those like-minded people together, then we're going to be moving in that direction of like, hey, we're going to do this to the best of our ability. And again, if God's in it, then God's going to do it, and we're going to take anybody. Because my heart, genuinely, Dave, is for the troubled youth. I volunteer at the Nevada House, which is an all-boys home in Colorado Springs. I go there, just whoever wants to come. I take them through some body weight exercise and stuff. Spent a lot of time on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation in South Dakota, one of the poorest places in the United States. I lived in inner city Detroit for almost a year. Not the suburbs, inner city Detroit. Like, I was a minority. Like, we're talking about people getting murdered. I had a gang member that lived beneath me in my flat, like wilding out, crazy stuff. And that's really like, my heart is for those type of kids. But if, the kid's coming from, a home where, their parents are worth $10 million, $10 billion, whatever, and they want to come, it's going to be open for anybody.
Yeah, Stephen Covey, are you familiar with him?
I am, yep. Mm-hmm.
He recommends that you start with the end in mind.
Mm.
So it sounds like you have this big vision and mission for this school, free range on the Front Range. Mm-hmm. And will every step from here on until that actually happens be in accordance and alignment with that vision?
100%. Yep. I've had, my only experience in public education has come through the charter school. So this school, Free Range on the Front Range, is going to have to be a charter school for various reasons. And my only educational experience has come through charter school. My first school that I was teaching at the last 2 years was a brand new school. So that's kind of weird, right? I started there 2 months after. It was overall a firestorm, a complete mess, but I learned a lot of things just in regards to administrational things and stuff like that. And then the school that I'm teaching at this year, the Vanguard School, it's the #1 school academically in Colorado Springs, the #3 school academically in the state of Colorado, and then we're ranked number 168 in the nation academically, top 200 school. So I've kind of, just in 3 years, God's put me in a situation where I've kind of seen the worst of the worst and the best of the best. And so everything that I'm moving towards in my life, to answer your question, is moving towards free range on the Front Range, yes.
Yeah. I've heard this recent quote, and it says, we drastically overestimate what we can accomplish in 6 months, but yet increasingly underestimate what we can do in 6 years.
Right, absolutely.
So where are you at in 6 months from now, and where are you at in 6 years from now?
In 6 months, I'll still be at the Vanguard School, God willing. I know that this experience at the Vanguard School is an amazing experience. It's an amazing opportunity. I'm going to be stepping into coaching, kind of, like an actual organized team for the first time. So, like I said earlier, I have a very wanderlust, free spirit. After about 2 years, I start kind of getting an itch to move. And I've already got my next place that I want to move. It's Yuma, Arizona, and we won't get into all that because that's a whole story. But I know that if I'm going to open up free range on the Front Range, I've got to be back in Colorado. So that's a whole nother story. But the Vanguard School for me, I know that I've got to kind of put that itch to the side and say, okay, and I've already had this inner conversation with myself, Dave, and I've already purposed it in my heart that I may be here for the rest of my life in Colorado. If this free range on the Front Range, if this is the end game, and if this is all going to happen, and it's God, which I know it is, then I may be here in Colorado for the rest of my life, which I'm okay with. I've kind of, I'm stepping into accepting that. I'm cool with that. But the next 6 months I'll be at Vanguard, and I'm pretty confident that in the next couple of years I'll be at Vanguard too. The experience the last 2 weeks of just kind of going through new teacher training and stuff, they gave us the growth mindset for a school book to read. And just everything that I am learning from kind of the faculty and the the administration they're on another level. Like, you don't become the number 168th ranked academically school in the nation just by kind of going through the motions.
Yeah,
they're dialed in, and they're a well-oiled machine. And it's an honor to be there. It's a privilege. got the opportunity to recreate the PE program. They're very open to kind of my holistic approach to PE and really changing things up, taking it away from kind of the sports-centric PE that most of us grew up in, and really, you know, teaching them movement, mindset. My 4 pillars in regards to the foundation of health is, you know, sleep, it's nutrition, it's movement, it's mindset. So the last 2 years I had the opportunity to basically create my own PE curriculum. I instilled that, and I'm taking those 4 pillars for the foundation of health and fitness, and going to be able to instill that at the Vanguard. So to again go back to your question, the next 6 months, the next year, the next 2 years, I see myself at the Vanguard School.
So you're beginning to teach coach cross country
Correct.
at the middle school level
Yep.
this coming year.
Uh-huh.
What would you like to accomplish this season, and what would you like the kids to learn in the next few seasons with you as their coach?
Yeah, great question. So this year, I just really want the kids, again, my whole thing is to instill that positivity into them, and I'm going to be focused really on that mindset. Because whether it's, you know, just going to the gym to lift weights, or you're actually participating in sport, and then, you know, the grander scheme, again, going back to life, it's mindset, you know. So I really want to give these kids an opportunity to learn that they have control and the power to, you know, direct their mind and their thoughts as they want. And as they learn that, then they will become better versions of themselves, and they will also become better athletes. Junior high, not all of the kids are going to be there to, you know, win the junior high state meet. You know what I mean? I understand that there's a lot of growth going on cognitively, physically, emotionally, all that type of stuff with that age group of kids. So I've kind of got to probably pull my passion back a little bit, and because, like, you know, it's again, whatever I'm doing, I'm all in. But I have to just realize, like, hey, you know, these are young kids, and you've got to chill a little bit, Q. But mindset, because mindset is everything. It starts with mindset if you want to be the best version of whatever you want to become, and including an athlete. So that's kind of the immediate thing. I also, you know, am just going to really bring that, you know, that proper or kind of that holistic approach to training. And when I say proper, I'm talking about, you know, a proper warm-up. How do we warm up for cross country, as opposed to how would we warm up for football practice or something like that? Then we have our main activity or our main training session, and then we have the cool down. So I really want to instill kind of that proper, or, you know, that scientifically based approach to, you know, training. And then in the years to come, if I continue to do cross country coaching for the junior high kids, you know, obviously if a freshman's going to be with me this year, they're going to be with me maybe through their senior year, the next 4 years, we'll, like, you know, I'll be able to build with those type of kids off of what I'm going to instill with them in regards to the mindset, give them some practices in their other sports in the summer, things like that. You know, in regards to, like, winning and all that, I just want these kids from the start, from the first meet, August 29th, to the last meet, I think it's like in October, I just want them to become better individuals, better versions of themselves, and I know that will then, you know, make themselves or will create a better runner, a better performer, a better student, things like that. So in regards to, like, winning and all that, junior high, like, the reality is like it's not about that at all. You know, it's more focused on, you know, bringing to that child or that student or that kid, you know, kind of that mindset and some useful tools of how they can maybe become better for themselves individually and as a team, and then, you know, as an athlete.
Yeah, I understand the developmental level of what age group you're coaching.
Yeah.
And I buy into the mindset philosophy of coaching as well. And if we could simplify it, we simply just maybe go into our goal setting period of simply just, like, teaching these kids that they can accomplish something.
Yeah.
Some of these kids might be coming into the cross-country season wondering if they could run a mile.
Right.
Or running the entire race and actually finishing it without stopping or without walking. You know, some kids come into every level of sport at that place.
Absolutely.
Of just simply questioning, can I accomplish this?
Right.
And then over the course of the year, this is why I always say that fitness and nutrition has been the best introduction to personal growth for me
Mm-hmm.
is because you start here and you end up, even if it's just 5 steps further down the path, then at least you're failing
Absolutely.
or incrementally stepping forward.
Right, absolutely.
And then the more development that they get physically,
Mm-hmm.
mentally, emotionally, cognitively, the further they'll progress.
Absolutely.
And they get introduced to this at this age.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's completely in alignment with what I just said, and I agree 100% because, again, it goes back to educating the next generation. How were we educated? You know, you went to public school, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, what was our public, school experience like? How did we get educated? And again, like, I'm not just talking about, in the classroom. I'm talking about, I really try to look back, like, the coaches that I appreciated. What did they do that I appreciated them? The coaches that I didn't like. How did they interact with me? How did they treat me that I didn't like them? It's like, I'm young. You're young. Like, I'm only 32 years old, but I've had a lot of experiences. I have the childhood experience, obviously, coaches, sports, college, high school, all of that. And it's like, I remember there was, when I was in junior high, there was one of my track coaches. I ran 1600s, I ran 800s, I ran hurdles, things like that. And I remember in junior high, I don't know if it was 7th or 8th grade, it was one of those years, but one of my coaches, it was the day before a meet. So he gathers us all together, tells us what we're running, what our field events were. And he said, now I want you to go practice your events. Okay, as a 12, 13-year-old, 14, whatever I was like, go practice your events. I was like, dude, the day before a meet where I'm running the 1600, I'm running the 800, I'm running the low hurdle, team race, I'm doing long jump, like I'm doing 4, 5, 6 events. I'm like, I'm not gonna go practice the 1600. Now, what did he mean by that? I really don't know, but dude, I'm 32 and that's stuck in my mind. Like kind of the ignorance of saying go practice your events. Well, you can probably go practice the shot put, you can go practice the discus, I can practice my hurdles, but dude, I'm not gonna go practice the 1600. So it goes back to like, okay, those experiences that I've had, how can I take those experiences, both positive and negative, and how can I, give that to my youth? You know what I mean? How can I present that to them so all of them can have a positive experience, So I definitely agree with that. But like, again, it's just like, how can we, again, stepping outside the classroom, how can we best educate, in the sports environment, in the extracurricular activity, just in life in general, how can we best educate, that next generation, and just, we need, as adults, like, Dave, like, it's so important for us, we know this, you and I at least know this, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners know this, but it's so important for us to have an open mind, to have that open heart, to be willing to change, to be willing to adjust, to be willing to succeed, to be willing to fail, to be willing to be wrong, to be willing to be called out. Because, again, going back to, you and I don't have it all figured out. We have a lot to learn. But the only way that we're going to learn is if we're open to learn, right? So it's like, I just want to be able, again, to instill that in the youth. But then also the amazing thing about working with kids, Dave, and you have a daughter, so you understand this, but it's like, there's so much, as we're open as adults, there's so much for us to gain and learn from them. So it's like, even as I kind of come in, it's like, this is my game plan, I've kind of, this, it's like, dude, like, I've still got to stay open. Because, the different kids are coming from different home environments. They might respond great to me talking to them this way. One kid might be like, they might need me to be really loud like I am and really intense and stuff. Another kid might, in junior high, and even in high school, they might break down and cry because they have, they have that environment at home. So it's like, as a coach, as an adult, as a teacher, as a mentor, what have you, even especially I think as a personal trainer, just being open to your client, open to your kids, being very open to learning from them as you're trying to pour into them. So.
Mm-hmm. Now remind me, your greatest influence in fitness was Roger Kroger?
Ralph Kroger.
Ralph
yep.
Kroger.
Mm-hmm.
So in 30 seconds or less, what would you say to Ralph if you could give him what he taught you? Just sum it up for me in 30 seconds.
You. That's what I would say to him. And I mean, that's it, man. I would say thank you, and I would give him a hug, and I'd probably start crying. You know what I mean? I had a lot of opportunity to kind of go back when I was in college to talk to Ralph, and I was in some different seasons of my life of partying and things like that, which he didn't agree with. But I would just say thank you, and I give him all.
Sure. And what is it from Ralph that you want to pass on to the next generation so that in 10, 15, 20 years they come back and they say what to you? What did you do because of Ralph for the next generation?
Yep. I believe that the greatest thing that Ralph gave to me and that I could give to the next generation is attention. And that's something that, you know, Ralph did a great job of, because I was very open as a kid. I was, you know, a very good listener. If Ralph told me to do something, I had that respect. He walked into his gym, he had all these trophies. Like, he practiced what he preached, you know. I mean, he was, you know, in his 60s, you know, and stuff like that when I was a kid, and he was still doing his leg extensions, he was still lifting weights, he was still on the elliptical, he was practicing what he was preaching. And I respected him. I listened to him. I did what he told me. I put the collars on the bar. I lifted the way he wanted me to lift, and he gave me a lot of attention. And a lot of kids and a lot of adults are starving for attention. We all have that longing for attention in our lives, and we feel that in different ways. But that's something that Ralph gave me, and that's something that I want to give, and that would be the greatest gift that I could give to the next generation, is just spending time with them and giving them that attention.
Awesome. So if somebody wants to reach out to you, maybe be a guest on the podcast or listen to your podcast, what's the best way for them to connect with you? Instagram
is my jam, at 127 Fitness. My personal Instagram is at QVarce. Then if you want to be on my podcast, or you think you have a friend or an acquaintance that might be a good guest or something like that, the email is 127fit@gmail.com. You can also find me on Facebook. Send me a message through Messenger, and that's just Quinton Varce. So, yep.
Now, if there's one person that who's maybe living, that we could reach out to right now, that is someone to follow, who would you direct our listeners and your listeners to right now?
That's a great question. So, one person that I really enjoy following on Instagram and listening to his podcast is Ed Milet. So he's, I think top 50 in the United States, wealthiest individuals. Do I agree with everything that he says? No, I don't agree with everything any human being says. But if you want positivity, if you want passion, if you want power in the sense of just his speech and the life that he's living, I would point somebody in the direction of Ed Milet. Somebody within the bodybuilding world that I respect and I've followed for a long time and really appreciate is Jay Cutler. There's Jay Cutler. There's Jay Cutler that was a quarterback in the NFL, but this is four-time Mr. Olympia Jay Cutler, and he, again, I appreciate him because he practiced what he preaches. He's been retired from professional bodybuilding, competing for a long time. He's still in great shape. He puts out great content on Instagram, great content on YouTube. So he is someone that I would point somebody towards in regards to kind of like bodybuilding and things of that nature. Him and Ed Milet are two men that are gentlemen to follow.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Quinton, for your time, coming all the way up from Colorado Springs.
Yeah.
And spending time with me here in my home, and it's a true honor, man.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. I appreciate it.
Of course.
So, all right,
we'll talk soon.
For sure.
All right, let's snap a
Sweet, man.
picture. How do you feel that went?
It was good, dude.